Hello there and a good afternoon. May I be the first to say welcome to your Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023 afternoon at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. We've got a gathering going on until about 3 o'clock. It is episode 285. We've much to do, as I say, every day. Welcome in. Hope you've had a wonderful day thus far. Hope you had a great morning. We'll hope to make your afternoon, at least until the drive with Brian Wilson, as good as humanly possible. What with all the nonsense going on in the world, to include Joe Biden is now leaving Poland by tripping himself up the stairs to Air Force One. This happening, 30 minutes or so ago. Yes, it's the second time. Yes, Joe Biden is a klutz. Yes, Joe Biden is old, and you should be concerned with that. But don't worry, we won't get into a war with Russia. We won't get into an entanglement with China. Don't worry, he's on top of all of those things. He just can't walk a flight of stairs. That's all. Now, if you ask me how good I will be at walking a flight of stairs at the age of 80, I will tell you probably very bad. At the same time, I will promise you this. When I'm 80 years old, I will not be president of the United States of America. I will not be leader of the free world. Joe Biden is. And Joe Biden is scaring the hell out of me right now. But fear not, because I have it on good authority. Just in from #NeverCNN. Just in from our friends at MSNBC. They have diagrammed and broken down the trip that was in Poland earlier today. And they have described it as the finest fall going to Air Force One since JFK fell in Berlin, Germany in 1961. Ronald Reagan tripped one time outside of the White House, and not since Reagan have we seen a trip like Joe Biden's. Not since Gerald Ford tumbled and bumbled his way through a disastrous presidency have we seen anything like Joe Biden and his trips and falls in Poland. I mean, you have to laugh to keep from crying, right? Joe Biden, I was very public yesterday because I was busy throughout the course of the morning. I had not seen Joe Biden's speech that was described as the greatest foreign policy speech since tear down this wall. Yesterday, I had not seen the speech, which was described en masse, by the way, by the Washington Post and New York Times, et cetera, et cetera. All the alphabet soups on television. It was the best foreign policy speech since JFK said that I am a jelly donut. And I know that's debated as to whether or not it's true.
The hell is that?
In my world, it will always be true. It will always, always, always be true. If you do not know the story, JFK went to Germany in 1961. He was delivering a foreign policy speech, and he said at the end of the speech, he built up to a crescendo, and he was saying that we are all part of one world. We are all part of one shared destiny. And then he transitioned to the German, and it was his intention to say, I, too, am a Berliner. And apparently, according to those who know these things, I don't speak German, he transposed a word or something, and it ended up that he said, I am a jelly donut. Or a pastry.
I can taste it.
But, I choose to say jelly donut. Ich bin ein Berliner. With a little bit of sprinkles on top. So, in the midst of the frivolity as we begin the show, I have a serious question for you. Ken Weaver, our industrious newsman, heard mornings on Nashville's Morning News and the Michael Del Giorno Show until about noon on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. He and I were talking. He's the one that alerted me that Joe Biden had once again fallen up the stairs. Fallen up the stairs, not down, up the stairs. And I asked him this question. What do you think we would do? What would we do? Serious question. If China decided now was the time to roll tanks and to roll armaments and to roll military into Taiwan? What would we do? I don't pretend to know the answer. I could speculate. I don't think it would be good. we are on poorer military footing, it seems to me, today than we've been in a long time. We don't have direction. We don't have a sense of leadership. We don't have a platform in world affairs to which we can launch initiatives or doctrine. We seem to be floating listlessly in the pond that is the world without an oar. And if we happen to float upon something that's of importance, great. And if not, oh well. But freedom. But democracy. But world order. What is our goal in Ukraine? What is the specific thing that we can do to stop sending them money? What needs to happen? I'm at a point now, and you guys know my position on this. I am no hawk. I'm a non-interventionist unless absolutely necessary. That said, there are things that you could have done, and there are still things that you can do to dissuade Russia from their continued attacks against a sovereign country without inching ourselves into war. And now we've dithered to the point that China's involved. And now China wants a cut of the action. And I will say this, and it is not to be interpreted as an attack on our men and women that put on the uniform. Because many of them are ready to go and ready to serve. But if the worst case scenario were to happen and China got together with Russia and created an alliance, and that leads us down the road to World War III or whatever you would want to call it, I don't know that you could say we win that. China creates an alliance with Russia, takes the opportunity to go ahead and dispatch of the Taiwan problem, because what's America going to do? At that point, you would need more individuals signing up for the United States military. We have a lot of young men and women who would be ready, willing, and able, but I don't know that we have enough. I don't know that we're ready for that. We got a lot of good, right-minded 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds, and we got a lot of dunderheads, too. Lot of pronoun use. Excuse me, Chinese military. Before you attack me in this engagement, you need to know my personal pronouns. It is a scary time in which we live in the United States of America. We have unrest in the economy. It really does feel a lot like the 1970s and Jimmy Carter, at least what I have read about it. I think the war itself, or the possibility of war itself, is a lot more reminiscent of the lead up to Vietnam, where we began in the spirit of not allowing the spread of communism to the Southeastern Asian countries. We declared that we would provide money and material goods, and we would provide money and even military items and equipment, all the while saying we're not prepared to send American what was it that Lyndon Johnson said? We're not going to send American boys to do what Asian boys have to do or need to do. And then eventually we did, because you send the money and then you want to make sure what they're doing with the money is correct. And so you send advisors, and the advisors get to talking to their advisors, and their advisors tell them, well, we don't need money. We need munitions. We need ground-to-air defense systems. We need tanks. We need air support. And before you know it, you're doing all of those things too. And before you know it, you've decided it might be better to not tell them how to operate these munitions, not to tell them how to operate these guns, but to show them. And what better way to show them than to show them actually doing it yourself, engaging in it yourself. And you know what? You guys just sit over there on the back line. You know what? Let us handle it. We'll do it. I mean, that's Matt Murphy's version of how we got into the Vietnam War. Where am I wrong? I understand there were geopolitical consequences. I also understand that the soldiers won the battles and lost the war because the politicians wouldn't let them win it. And the politicians won't tell us today what the hell the goals are. What are the goals? Democracy. Well, Ukraine's not a democracy anyway, but be that not in the fashion that we understand it, be that as it may, what are our achievable goals? Tell me that, and then maybe you can get me behind your effort. Maybe you can get me on the side of, yeah, let's go ahead and do this thing. It would occur to me that if your goal is to repel Russia from Ukraine, then you wouldn't stop Poland from allowing planes to be used to protect airspace. One would presume the goal is not a stalemate. But don't worry. Joe Biden's currently tripping up the stairs to Air Force One. He'll get this all figured out. He'll get it all figured out. In the meantime, Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg is Secretary of Transportation because he is a homosexual. I do not say that in any disparaging way toward the homosexual community. I say that as a fact. There is 0.00 chance that without that identifying factor, without that protected class nature, that he would not be in a position of authority over our transportation sector in the United States of America. And yet here he is, fumbling and bumbling, not knowing what to do, watching as train derailments happen on a daily basis, watching as the disaster in East Palestine unfolds in front of him. I would be willing to bet you my paycheck for a year that Pete Buttigieg had zero awareness of East Palestine for the first week. Maybe it was on a memo sheet somewhere that he was made aware of. Oh, the National Transportation Safety Board, the NSTB or NTB. Anyway, the boys are out there in Ohio. They're cleaning some spill up. It'll be good. But now 3 weeks later or thereabouts, Pete Buttigieg has decided he's going to go. A day after saying that it would only be a photo op if he were to go now, he's going now. Presumably for the Vice President Kamala Harris-style photo opportunity, you just go ahead and check that box. That's the way the Biden administration deals with things. You grind your heels into the sand for no good reason. There's no reason that Pete Buttigieg wouldn't go to East Palestine immediately upon discovery that this is a FUBAR-type situation. Can I say that? I did. I said it. There's no reason
for gosh sake, watch your language.
There's no reason for him not to go. Yet he dug his heels in and said he wasn't going to go, and now he is going to go. I wonder who told him he had to go. Because yesterday he said he wasn't going to go. Now he said that he is going to go. I wonder who said, look, you need to go, check that box, make a speech, pat people on the back, tell them what a great job they're doing. In the meantime, there are people that are coughing up blood. There are citizens of East Palestine, Ohio, that are coughing up blood, one would presume as a result of going back to their homes too early at the urging of Norfolk Southern and the EPA, the Biden administration. Meantime, somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 to $100 billion of fake money heads over to Ukraine. I didn't say that it would be a pleasant show, but it will be a show jam-packed. We've got Cameron Smith coming up at 1:30 today. Before that, we have Representative Scott Desjardins. He will be with us at 12:35 this afternoon. And good friend of the show, Joey Barnett, who is a House representative, has a couple of bills in the General Assembly I want you to know about. Will be along at about 2:30. That's the lineup on the Murphy Show. You can listen, obviously, always 99.7 FM. You can also listen on the app and other streaming platforms, and you can watch if you so desire. It's YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, and Twitter on SuperTalk TV. It's SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is located in Franklin. They've got a very special running, and it's going to run out very soon. Let me tell you about it. The professionals, the team of professionals at the Dr. Gill Center want to make sure that you get in the new year, and let's create a new you in the new year. If you've been suffering from pain and you just live with it, or if you try to cover it up with pain medication, either over-the-counter or prescribed, or if you're considering surgery, please do me a favor and make the call that so many others have made to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. You'll be so happy that you did. Their team of physicians will meet with you. Either Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V might be there. They'll sit down with you and talk to you about where it hurts and how it hurts, and when you move, what happens, etc. Then they'll get some x-rays going. And those x-rays come out immediately. They diagnose you right there in the first visit. They walk you through the x-rays and their findings, and they develop a plan of action, a plan of success. That's what it's like at the Dr. Gill Center. And all of that I just described is $23. $23 in 2023 for you if you're a new patient. Go to the Dr. Gill Center. Here's the telephone number. It's a new one, 615-882-4838. 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and the Matt Murphy Show. It is 12:25. Pleased you've joined us. We'll be joined by Representative Scott Desjardins coming up in 10 minutes. He has a proposal. He's putting some meat on the bone with regard to the elderly in politics. We'll talk about that in a moment with Scott. We'll also get his take on where we are with Ukraine. It's seemingly a blank checkbook at this stage of the proceedings. And reasonable people, I'm probably a little more hesitant for physical or active engagement than most. But also most reasonable people that are willing to engage want to know what the goals are of engagement. What are we looking to accomplish with said engagement? 615-737-9986. Speaking of engagement, if you desire to do so, you may, by dialing up that number, you can either text us or call us on the show. And many of you have. Steve writes in, hey, Matt, when you have Scott Desjardins on, can you ask him what is he doing about the Social Security problem? Not just talking about it, but what is he doing to correct the Social Security insolvency? Is he submitting a plan for Congress to look at? Social Security needs to be corrected now. Social Security is a ramped-up Ponzi scheme that is headed for disaster without some major concessions by the older voter in America. And here's what I mean. The easiest thing to do would be to raise the age of Social Security to 70. Right now, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, right now, you can start collecting a percentage of Social Security at 62, and then you're fully eligible at 65. I think that's right. If you shifted that to 65 and 70, I think that would go toward solving the issue, but it's a much more complex issue than that, and I won't pretend that I can answer your question in just a sentence, but I will ask Scott Desjardins about it. Then there's on the super text line 6398. I have no idea what you're talking about, 6398. Cowardice such as yours and other so-called conservative talk. I don't call myself a conservative talk show host, by the way. So if someone's calling me a conservative talk show host, 6398, I would encourage you to correct them and tell them that I'm a small L libertarian talk show host. I don't claim to be a conservative because my views are divergent from conservatives on a number of different points, to include personal liberty matters that conservatives seem to want to involve themselves in American lives. I don't besmirch their opinions on these matters, and we have plenty of conservative voices on this radio station. I just don't describe myself as one of them. So whoever's calling me that needs to correct themselves. That said, cowardice such as yours and other so-called conservative talk show hosts has helped to bring us to this point in our nation. And I have no idea what that means. But thank you for participating. I appreciate you. Oh, there was one other. How can there be a homosexual community when they cannot reproduce? Sounds like you are caving in little by little to political correctness. You can only run so far to try to save your job until they catch up with you. This is the same schmuck that's talking to me. Just give me a call, 6398, and I would be happy to talk to you about this. I think it's probably not in our best interest to try to engage in a text exchange. But if you wanted to call me at 615, same number you texted, just call me. I'll be happy to talk to you. You realize that there are homosexuals. And collectively, you would refer to them as the homosexual. What I was saying was that Pete Buttigieg would not be Secretary of Transportation were he not gay. Because Joe Biden is insistent on checking those identity boxes off. Oh, look, we've got a gay Secretary of Transportation. That's never been done before. Check. Oh, look, we've got an African-American lesbian press secretary. Check. Oh, look, we've got a transgendered, I don't even know, what is Levine's role? I don't even know what his role is. Deputy Health and Human Services. Very good, Bill. So my acknowledgement of the fact that there are homosexuals in the world is in no way acquiescing to any ideological or political position on them. But I would say this. I don't care what people do in their homes to individuals who are of the age of majority or with individuals who are of the age of majority. What I don't want them to do or engage in involves a different type of thing, which is, a different subject for another day. But thank you for your participation on the show. I do appreciate that. 62 early with penalty, 67 would be full benefits with a ramp up annually between the two ages. Thank you so much, 7157. I love that. All right, it's 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Coming up in just a moment, we've got Scott Desjardins on the way, plus Ohio air quality versus COVID and the reaction to both. I'm going to compare the two in just a moment. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy to tell you about a very special going on at Nashville Painting Company. I call it a special. I probably couldn't. I shouldn't. Because they don't do sales. They give you the lowest price on everything they do with Nashville Painting Company every time they come out and give you a quote. But I'll tell you this. Jeremy and his team, they want to do interior work right now, and they want to help you get there in whatever way they can. They are being, let's say, as aggressive as possible to tell you it's time to get that paint job done inside of your house, and they're going to make it work for you one way or the other. So if you've got interior work that you need done, if you've got cabinets that you need done, maybe decks that you need stained, and yeah, if you've got exterior work, they can handle that as well. Nashville Painting Company is simply the best in the business, and they want you to sign up with them today. Go ahead and schedule that appointment. They'll come out, and at no obligation to you, they'll give you exact scopes and pricing and make sure that you're aware of everything that you've got coming in front of you, and then they'll get down to business and get that paint job done on the interior and exterior of your home. NashvillePaintingCompany.com is the website, NashvillePaintingCompany.com. Here's the telephone number, 615-635-0350. 635-0350 for Nashville Painting Company.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11, or jumping into energy stocks, or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
Oh, as bad as things seem, I love my super texters. They always pick up my spirits. Matt writes in, Biden do be tripping, though. That is true. For those just joining us, Joe Biden had a little bit of a trip. It wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of a stumble. We all do it, but at Joe Biden's age and considering that he's already stumbled up the stairs once on Air Force One, it's just one of those things that if you're trying to demonstrate strength in a foreign country with regard to our resolve in Ukraine, et cetera, it's probably not the way to do it. There's a lot of questions about Joe Biden's age and level of infirmity. Representative Scott Desjardins wants to put some of those questions into a bill or at least create answers and put that into legislation. And he's here to talk about that, amongst other things, on the Matt Murphy Show. Always good to catch up with Representative Desjardins. How are you, Scott?
Doing great, Matt.
Talk to me about this legislation. I think this first got on the national discussion, I should say, when Nikki Haley brought it up, suggesting that maybe at some point we ought to have some sort of cognition test for our political leaders. I'm thinking of, over the years, I can go Democrat and Republican tit for tat. I remember Robert Byrd back in the day. I remember Strom Thurmond back in the day. Dianne Feinstein right now in California, who is set to retire. It's obvious that at some stage in the proceedings, we pass the winter season of our public service, so to speak. So talk to me about your concepts.
Right. And, I was glad that Nikki Haley brought that up. We've been kind of working on this concept for a while now with the cognitive issues that everybody had been talking about with Biden's, consistent blunders and missteps whenever he's talking on the world stage at home or, unable to read a teleprompter. But it's really not just about Biden because, Biden makes it obvious to all of us right now that this could be an issue. There were members of Congress back when Trump first took office that felt that he wasn't competent. In fact, Representative Jamie Raskin drew up a bill to have cognitive testing done for the president. But I'm thinking, why do we let it get that far? Why shouldn't we know when a president or a vice president runs for office that they're mentally capable of handling the most important job in the world, and that's commander-in-chief of the most important and potent military. So, our idea was that we're not going to pick on Joe Biden or Donald Trump or anyone in general, but bottom line is people are living longer, and most presidents took office at a younger age. It was I think Reagan was the first one that drew attention for possibly being too old coming in at 69. But, both Trump and Biden were in their mid to late 70s when they took office. So maybe this is a new problem. And unfortunately, it'll probably require an amendment to the Constitution to make it a requirement. The Constitution currently requires that you be 35 years of age, a natural born citizen, and have lived in the country 14 years. We think that a cognitive exam should be a requirement to run for office and be commander-in-chief.
So why limit it? I guess my initial question is, and I'm in complete agreement with you, Scott. I do believe that it is necessary, and it's pretty obvious that it's necessary. I find it fascinating. You bring up the Trump aspect of this, and I'd not thought of that. We actually had members of Congress suggesting that the 25th Amendment be invoked when Donald Trump was president. I'm sure you have memory of that as well. But why limit it to presidents of the United States? Would it get a little trickier to ask a Congress to pass rules and regulations regarding their own?
Right. And I think that you're right, and we're actually working on that right now. But I think priority number one is that our commander-in-chief be competent. We know that going in when we nominate candidates. So for this next election, I would like to get this in place. Obviously, amending the Constitution is very difficult. It's only happened 27 times, and you'd have to have buy-in from 3/4 of the states. But I do think this is a nonpartisan issue. And the key, the devil's always in the details. How do we do this fairly? So do you have a commission that agrees on 2 or 3 standardized cognitive tests? So, we've got to work that out. Now, with Congress, you got all different ages. You can have a representative running at age 25, so there's all different kinds of crazy out there. We're talking more about, cognitive decline and dementia for our commander-in-chief. But you take Fetterman, for example. We all knew he couldn't speak. He had expressive aphasia due to a stroke, but yet they left him there, and now he's in a hospital seeking treatment, which we all feared would happen if they continue to leave him under that kind of pressure. And as you mentioned, Dianne Feinstein announced her retirement, then forgot that she announced her retirement, and there's others. So certainly members of Congress and whether it be the House or Senate should fall under this umbrella. But I think for our initial phase, we're going to look at making this requirement for vice president and presidential candidates initially, but we already are working on a secondary bill that will include members of Congress. But as you can tell with the age range, it's going to be a whole different setup in terms of testing.
So what I would think that you would get a good reaction both from Republicans and Democrats. Now, obviously, Democrats in the White House right now, and they're going to look at this as, a slap at their guy. Have you had any Democrats that have offered support either publicly or privately?
Well, interestingly, we've been doing district work last week and this week, and we just dropped this bill yesterday, or HJ Res 35. And so I haven't had a chance to approach many of the Democrats, but I will talk to Jamie Raskin first, because he thought this was a good idea in 2017. And I don't know why he wouldn't now, because they had concerns about President Trump. President Trump did take the Montreal cognitive exam, passed it, and released that information. And Biden, this isn't going to require him to do anything right now. Now, if he runs for re-election, it would. And I would think that there's enough Democrats who've shown concern about Biden's cognitive failures that it's not going to be that difficult to get people to agree with the concept. The secret's going to be keeping it nonpartisan and having a commission that's fair, that it's not used for political targeting, because I know that's going to come up. I would worry about that myself. So it's going to, there's going to be amendments and perfections to this bill as we go along. But I really don't know who, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, anybody across all political spectrums across this country have got to agree that we need a competent commander-in-chief. And so I think it's not going to be as tough a sell as we think. We just got to reassure people that it's not for political purposes or targeting.
I mean, the 25th Amendment already exists. That involves presidential disability. I guess I'm probably a little bit behind in this discussion, Scott, but catch me up. But could we not interpret mental infirmity as disability? And I guess at that stage, I'm answering my own question when I say, but how do you determine mental competency, right?
Right. And that's where I think, like Raskin suggests, that a commission that's nonpartisan determine it. And
right.
That's, the train's already left the station if you're using the 25th Amendment, because you've got somebody that's already been elected. I think Biden going into this next election, there's already questions about his competency. And he just had a health report released that he was a vital, vibrant 80-year-old, but that's a lot different than a vibrant, vital 40-year-old. So, any doctor can say anything. You can say, for 100 years old, he's in really good shape. That doesn't mean he's up for the job. So that type of, rendering of an opinion from a physician probably doesn't mean that much. But if you have a panel that's nonpartisan that determines fitness, both physical and mental, then I think we're going to be in a lot better place.
And so obviously the reason this requires a constitutional amendment is because the Constitution is fairly clear on the singular requirements to be president of the United States. You have to be of a certain age. You have to be a naturalized citizen. I mean, so in other words, because it lays out the specific requirements, if you're going to lay another requirement on top of that, it needs to be an amendment.
Right. We've looked at other angles, like tying it to the Federal Election Commission. When you file, you have to do this. It wouldn't have as big a teeth, so to speak, as if it were actually a constitutional amendment. Again, those are hard to do. We got our work cut out for us, but I do think that so far the reception we've gotten has been very warm, and that people agree this is common sense. And I really think, the fact that we just really haven't had this issue till the past decade or so. It came up a little bit with Reagan back in, the end of his second term, and he was in his, 77 when he left office. But now, again, people are living longer, which is a good thing. But you see a lot of people with dementia as age increases, and that's because people are living longer. So it really hasn't been a problem. Eisenhower was 70, I believe, when he retired. But just look at the last, really 100 years, and it's pretty uncommon. But to see people get into their 70s in their presidency. But now we've had it back to back, and so I think it's a perfect time to have the discussion. And it's hard to deny that there's currently a problem, and some people, as you said and we mentioned earlier, thought there was a problem with Trump. So let's do something about it.
Our guest, Scott Descharlet, talking to us about a potential amendment to the United States Constitution. You say that you're working with the GOP Doctors Caucus to write the legislation, right?
Yeah, well, I'm working with them to get ideas on the best avenues for cognitive function testing. Obviously, there's a number of different tests out there, and we want to decide whether it would be a battery of tests, whether it's a single test. Is there one that everyone can agree on that you have to have these basic functions to be determined competent? And I've administered these tests in my office when I was a physician to determine early stages of Alzheimer's or dementia. So they can be pretty simple, but usually it involves repeating a series of eggs, bread, milk, and butter. Can you repeat that? Can you read a paragraph? Can you comprehend it? What can you tell? There's different exercises you do. We just have to decide what would be a good battery of tests to require, and then so I'm working with my physician colleagues to iron that out.
One of my super texters just wrote in, and I think it's a valid point, Scott, and I want your reaction to it. They say it's really not cool to target one branch and not the others. If it's a heavy lift to get this constitutional amendment through the Congress anyway, and I think I might know the answer to this, but I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, why not go ahead and do both? Why not say if you're going to serve in any office on the federal level, either United States Senate, United States Congress, as a judge or as president, why not go ahead and cover all three branches?
Yeah, I had that discussion just an hour ago with my wife on Supreme Court judges, and so that's the beauty about this process that we have. I can drop this bill, it can be amended, it can be perfected, and we were already saying, why not Supreme Court judges? Obviously, they're appointed for life. Shouldn't they be competent of all people, and senators and members of the House? And so I think that this will grow in all three directions, all three branches. I'm glad your caller brought that up. We're already thinking about that. I think initially the here and now with the upcoming presidential election, it seems like it's an issue that everybody's been talking about. Yes, Nikki Haley brought it out in her announcement the other day, but this conversation's been going on for over a year, and actually probably over the past 5 years. And so we started with this idea, but I have an idea that it's going to expand and grow to include all these other entities as well.
Well, and it has historically, and I'm not casting aspersions at any of these folks, but it's historically been more noticeable in Congress because Congress people are not term limited, and because especially in the Senate, you see rather old people serving out 6-year terms. I mean, Strom Thurmond comes to mind. And it's pretty clear, and I'll use him as an example, the late, great Strom Thurmond. Great in many ways, not so great in other ways, so don't give me the emails. I get it. I understand what he did back in the day. But he, was almost 100 years old by the time that he died and served almost the entire length of his life toward the end. And it was obvious that his staff was taking care of everything for him. And so because of that, I would think that this might broaden out to all, elected roles within the federal government.
Yeah, Teddy Kennedy comes to mind as well. He had issues, and sometimes there's health issues that incapacitate you. Yeah. So you're right. A lot of these people are just placeholders in a seat. And I think the Fetterman election was a great example. When you start your debate with "Hello, everyone, good night," there's something wrong there, and so it was clear what was going on. And I feel really bad for John Fetterman. He was just propped up there in a terrible situation, and now he's having to seek help in a mental institution. And as a family member of his, I would have never allowed that. It's not that important to hold public office over your health and your well-being. So, I think that a lot of this needs to be looked at, and certainly the government is not functioning as it should. We've got massive problems. We've got divisiveness, and having competent people would go a long way to starting to solve some of these problems.
Scott Desjardins is with us for maybe a minute or two longer, and I appreciate his appearance today, talking primarily about this possibility of beginning the conversation regarding legislation on cognitive ability in federal government. I'm getting a lot of reaction suggesting that the devil is in the details, and you've kind of expressed that as well. Who would be doing the testing? Are these individuals completely and totally nonpartisan? Are there fail-safes involved? And I'm certain that you're working hard to work all of that out. I would think that we would need to get this movement going on the grassroots level to make sure that Congress is included. Would you not agree? I mean, I kind of know how these things work, Scott, and unless there's a groundswell of push to make sure that the legislative branch is included. I mean, maybe we start with the executive branch and we move from there, but I love the beginnings of this conversation. It's a good one.
Right, yeah. I mean, it can be a three-tiered process. If we can get it all rolled into one and moving along here over the next couple of months, that's great. We've actually been having this conversation within my staff and office and talking to CRS and other agencies what the best approach to this would be. We've been at this for over a month. We just now dropped the bill yesterday. And so we've been working on all these details, and the term "the devil's in the details" probably came up 50 times already because we realize how it's going to look. Just the fact that Biden is in the spotlight right now. If it was Trump, it was fine for Jamie Raskin to put this out when it was Trump. He may not be as enthusiastic now that Biden's in the spotlight, but I'm going to have that conversation with him as soon as we get back to Washington and hopefully get him as a co-sponsor. So absolutely, finding a fair process is key. I wouldn't want it any other way. We've already seen DOJ, FBI target American citizens. The last thing we want is to make this process political and keep a good, viable candidate out because you have a crooked panel or a commission that isn't fair. So whoever said that, they're exactly right. It's so important that we get this right, and that's why we have the Doctors Caucus trying to find the right cognitive test. Then who's going to administer the test, and how do we all agree on it and keep it fair? So that's the most important part of it. And then hopefully people have confidence in who they're going out to vote for.
Scott, always good to catch up. Come see us sometime when you're in Nashville. We appreciate the work that you do in Washington, D.C. Take care.
Good being with you, Matt.
All right. There's Scott Desjardins joining us for a good conversation regarding a constitutional amendment that he would like to see before the Congress involving cognitive ability in elected officials. It is 12:52. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. On the eve of marking 1 year since Russia invaded Ukraine, President Biden met with Eastern NATO members today in Poland. President Biden also called out Russia for suspending the START nuclear treaty, saying it was a big mistake. ABC's Avery Harper has reaction here at home.
There are conservatives who believe that the concept of Russia going into into NATO nations is overblown, that they don't want to see the U.S. give Ukraine a blank check to continue their military efforts. But Biden himself has maintained all along that the U.S. is going to help to defend every inch of NATO territory, and it's going to continue to support Ukraine's military efforts.
In Ohio, health concerns are growing in East Palestine following the toxic train derailment earlier this month. That's renewed calls for more safety regulations. ABC's Gio Benitez takes a closer look at train derailments in the U.S.
We've already seen over a dozen train incidents since the start of the year, and early Tuesday morning, a train carrying coal in Nebraska, the third time it's happened in that spot in the past year. So that got us thinking, what do the numbers look like across the country? Well, you may be surprised to find out there were over 800 derailments in 2022, 818 to be exact. But when it comes specifically to hazardous materials being transported, nearly 450 train cars carrying dangerous goods were either damaged or derailed last year.
An Israeli military raid today targeting militants in the West Bank turned deadly. It's the latest surge of violence between Israel and Palestinians. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric urging both sides to de-escalate.
What is important for us is to see an end to this cycle of violence. The only way out is through a political solution and a renewed dialogue between the parties.
Palestinian Authority says 10 were killed, including 2 civilians. You're listening to ABC News.
Friends, tonight, it's tonight. We've been telling you about the great event at the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce, and now it is time. Now, if you've not signed up yet, don't worry. You still have time to do so. Go to LT360.com. You'll see the tab there right on the top of the screen. Click that tab that talks about Dr. Underwood, Coach Scott, and yours truly, Matt Murphy, being at the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce tonight. We'll also be joined by Coach Elizabeth and the rest of the team of LT360. It really helps you understand the process of LT360, how it truly is life transformational. If you sit down and talk with Coach Scott, you'll get to meet me for what it's worth. If you're watching me on the tube right now, you can see me in person tonight. All you have to do is go to LT360.com. They ask that you sign up so they know how many people they're going to feed, because food is provided. It's a delicious and nutritious meal, and also the discussion is going to feed your mind as well. LT360 has truly changed the way that I look at weight loss and health on the cellular level. Coach Scott has done the deep dive. He's done the digging, and he can answer all of your questions and concerns. It's not just about your weight, although that's a big part of it. It's also about getting you off pharmaceuticals and making sure you're living the healthiest life for you. LT360.com, and I'll see you tonight at 6:30 at the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce. All right, here we are. Here we go. It's hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show, 105. Good to be with you. Thank you for being with us. Whatever time you give us, we're appreciative. Someone called Tommy Cunningham up at the Grand Old RV Resort Convalescence Home and Bat Meat Market. Let him know I'm wearing his hat. I took his hat, now I'm wearing his hat. You can see that if you're watching on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, and Twitter. You cannot see it on the radio, but I am well capable of describing it to you if you so desire. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. That's your super text line. That is also your super talk line if you want to turn a monologue into a dialogue. So I started with, I saw a meme. You know what a meme is, right? You're online, you see these funny little things. Oftentimes they have captions, and, they'll make you laugh. And the best ones make you laugh, much like editorial cartoons always did in the newspaper. They make you laugh, but they also make you think. And this particular meme was it was one of those nondescript little heads, like it was a drawing of someone's face. It's like I call him the gray man. You see them a lot. Liberals use them a lot with a MAGA hat on, but whatever. It's the gray guy, and he's standing in front of a beautiful scene. There's a serene setting. There's a mountain in the background. There's beautiful trees, green. There's a stream in the foreground, babbling brook, if you will. Birds. You can imagine the birds chirping in the background. And that person has a mask on. And the caption on that photo is, "You must wear a mask at all times to protect yourself and to protect others." And in the second photograph of the meme, there is a picture of East Palestine, Ohio, and the mushroom cloud that was unleashed on those residents. And the same little head is there, this time with no mask. And it says, "Everything's perfectly fine with the air, and if you believe otherwise, you're wrong," or something along those lines. It is fascinating how the mainstream media has decided that they will take basic matters of air quality or basic matters of water quality, basic matters of health when it comes to our American citizens and turn it into a political football, which is what they've done in East Palestine. It's what they did during COVID. We were told that if you do not wear a mask in public, that you're a direct harm to other people. And it was all Bravo Sierra, all of it. Oh, that's not me saying that. More on that in a moment. The medical officials that lied to you repeatedly through the National Institutes of Health, Fauci, the CDC, Walensky, and others have yet to come clean with you, and they won't. This is the way the government lie goes. They lie, and they challenge the mainstream media not to go against them on it, because if they save one life, it's worth it. If we save one life, this is worth it. Forget the amount of lives and the amount of businesses and the amount of livelihoods that you're destroying in the process. If we save one life, this is worth it. Aren't you with us, woke ABC? Aren't you with us, woke CBS? Aren't you with us, woke New York Times and Washington Post? And with uniformity, they say yes, 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 and yes. We are with you. And so our businesses get behind the force of government, and we are required, despite our better judgment or despite our personal leanings, we're required to take shots that we did not want to take. We're required to wear masks that we inherently believe in our guts are just nonsense. But that was for a political purpose. That was to test power and control over the general population. I truly believe that there were agencies within the federal government that were determining how far they could push it, how far they could go with it. How much would the American people take with regard to power and control? I wish I could say we passed. I don't know that we did. I don't know that we failed either. We are the wiser for it when it comes to COVID. Now we have a real and present health emergency, localized, sure, but a real and present health emergency in East Palestine, Ohio, and the Biden administration just ignores it. Now, I understand that local and state officials are initially on the scene to handle that situation, but this is also a federal matter considering the amount of oversight the federal government has with our transportation sector generally and the railroad sector specifically. Local governments don't have any control over what trains do. Well, I say any. I won't say that. Precious little control. I know this because of my years doing this job. And I would have occasionally back in Birmingham when I was there, and it's not come up in the city of Nashville or in the metro region or in the Middle Tennessee area, but I'm certain in your local community you've had this conversation perhaps over the years where you're asking the mayor, why in the heck does that train stop on the tracks for 20 minutes during drive time? My goodness gracious, can't we do anything about that? And regularly we are told, I have been told over the years, the local community in the state has nothing to do with it. Those tracks are they're owned by whatever, in this case, Norfolk Southern, and they're governed and regulated by the federal government, and there's not anything that we can do about it. So, yes, the federal government has very much a say. And no, I'm not going to fall into I love this. So, at the beginning of East Palestine, or Steen, we were told, well, it's not that big of a deal. Happens all the time. And it does. Train derailments happen all the time, but not of this magnitude. And it's not necessarily the derailment that we're concerned about. It's the forced explosion of the materials and the 48 hours later, the conversation in which government officials in Norfolk Southern told the residents of East Palestine that you could go back home. You're fine. You're all good. Oh, by the way, they also told Norfolk Southern, apparently they were gathering residents of East Palestine together and asking that they sign off on non-disclosures in which Norfolk Southern would be, no, I'm not making this up. We're willing to pay for your water testing. We're willing to help you out with monetary recompense, but you got to sign this saying that you're not going to disclose it. I mean, my wife said to me over the weekend, we're watching Aaron Brockovich in real time. She said that on Sunday. I say to you on Wednesday, Aaron Brockovich is going to East Palestine. I don't think Aaron Brockovich would be going to East Palestine had the federal government, the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg and others done their jobs as one would expect them to do, to regulate that private entity to make sure that they're doing what they ought to do and doing right by the citizens of East Palestine. But the Biden administration doesn't care about East Palestine. East Palestine's a bunch of Trump voters. Everything, make no mistake about this, friends. And I know that I'm jaded. Everything they do is in the lens of politics. Everything they do. It's within the scope of the political ramifications and whether or not it's going to work for them politically. Now, I want to circle back for just a moment. The Cochrane Library. I received, a listener of mine offered me a database review from the Cochrane Library. It was entitled Physical Interventions to Interrupt or Reduce the Spread of Respiratory Virus. For those unfamiliar with the Cochrane database, it is a system by which medical professionals can access studies done on a variety of different topics involving medicine. It is one of the most trusted and informed collection of research in America. And I have the results of a collection of studies. It is this database that I'm going to quote to you when it comes to the interruption or reduction of the spread of respiratory viruses. So here's the background on this real quick. This is very important because there are still mainstream media outlets that refuse to accept culpability in the misinformation that they propagated during COVID-19. I am willing to forgive that mistakes happened on the front end. The China virus created in a lab, what Fauci knew or did not know. I think we know what he knew, and he lied to the American people, and people died as a result. But whatever was going on in that Wuhan lab, I don't think there's any question that the virus came from the lab. I do think there's a question about whether it was intentionally or unintentionally released. I have my opinions on that. But regardless of that, in the aftermath of COVID-19, we really did not know what we were dealing with, right? And so I get, 2 weeks to stop the spread, 30 days to stop the spread, 2 months to stop the spread, 20 years to stop. I get the initial concern by Donald Trump and members of the Trump administration and others and local authorities. I was not here at the time, but I understand why people would want to pause and make sure that we're doing the right thing by the general population. What I don't understand, if some dunderhead talk show host in Nashville, Tennessee has access to the Cochrane Library, I would suggest to you that #NeverCNN has it. I would suggest to you that MSNBC has it. I would suggest to you that the New York Times has it. And the evidence is as plain as the hat on my head. The objective of this study was to assess the effectiveness of physical intervention to interrupt or reduce the spread of acute respiratory virus. That is a fancy way of saying, do masks work? The Cochrane Library included randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, and cluster RCTs, investigating physical intervention, screening at entry ports, isolation, quarantine, physical distancing, personal protection, hand hygiene, face masks, glasses, gargling to prevent respiratory transmission. They included 11 RCTs. Once again, RCTs are randomized controlled trials to include 610,000 plus participants. So that brings their total number of RCTs to date, randomized trials, to 78. All right, so let's go to masks. They included in the study 12 trials comparing medical and surgical masks versus no masks in the prevention of the spread of viral respiratory illness. Primarily, obviously, we're talking COVID-19 at this stage. Here are the findings. Wearing masks in the community makes little or no difference to the outcome of influenza-like illness compared to not wearing masks. Wearing masks in the community probably makes little to no difference to the outcome of laboratory-confirmed influenza, SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19 compared to not wearing masks. Harms were rarely measured and poorly reported. They go on to do a study and survey on N95 masks, and they say that there's very little in terms of comparison to the N95 masks and the wearing of those to the wearing of standard surgical masks or medical masks. Masks did not work during COVID-19. Never did. Never did. I bring this up now because I think it's important to put it on the record. Because CNN won't, ABC won't, New York Times won't, because they have to admit that what they were doing was ginning up fear amongst the population for the purpose of bringing down Donald Trump. Do you notice how the fear-mongering went away when Joe Biden became president? Oh, everything's fine then. Oh, they ratcheted up the attempts at government control because they had a compliant president that was willing to do that. But largely, the fear-mongering was pointed toward Trump, not toward anyone else, and certainly not toward China. The authors of the study go on to note that hand hygiene interventions with controls and sufficient data to include, let's say, settings included schools, child care centers, and homes, comparing hand hygiene interventions with controls. I'm trying to clean this up because there's a lot of scientific language in this. In absolute terms, they say the benefit in regular hand washing would result in a reduction from 380 events per 1,000 people to 327 events per 1,000 people. When considering a more strictly defined outcome, the estimates for the effects suggest the intervention made little or no difference. Hand washing. I'm just telling you the results of the study. Thought you'd find that interesting. It's 1:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Your calls, your thoughts coming up, 615-737-9986. Plus, Cameron Smith has a thought or two about the saga of Don Lemon. And that's on the way at about 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. If you caught me on social media, go to my Facebook page, Matt Murphy or Matt Murphy Show. You can also catch me on Twitter, at Matt Murphy Show. And you scroll down there, I say a lot of gobbledygook. But if you you'll get to a series of photographs. Two of them are the two Savory Spice locations. One, L&L Market, right over on Charlotte Pike. The other is in Franklin, right off the square, right beside Gray's drugstore. So you see those photos, and then you'll see a photograph of a spice mixture, a mixture that is called Sunday pot roast. E made this Sunday, and my goodness gracious, was it incredible. I gave you an after photo. I don't do photos of food very often on my social media platforms, but I had to give you this because it was so delicious and so simple. I mean, you put the meat in, you put some onions in, you put some broth in, you put some carrots in, then you put all the spices in. You don't have to worry about shaking out those spices. Now, you can do it yourself. They've got the spices for you. Let me tell you, you up your food game in so many different ways, but you use the same old spices. What are you doing? Go to Savory Spice. I'm telling you, it is an absolute game changer. Located in Franklin, just off the square, L&L Market on Charlotte Pike. Tell them that Matt Murphy sent you to up that spice game, and I would strongly recommend the alderwood salt. I use it on everything. Absolutely love that stuff. It's Savory Spice in Franklin and Nashville. Go by today. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you. So Pete Buttigieg says he's going to handle the East Palestine situation. He's going over there tomorrow. This on the heels of Secretary Pete was asked last evening by an intrepid reporter. I think this was a Daily Caller reporter. What he was going to do about it. Here's how that exchange went. With Pete heading to dinner.
What do you have to say? Hi, how are you? Good. Jenny Terra with the Daily Caller News Foundation. What do you have to say to the folks in Ohio, East Palestine, who are suffering right now?
Well, I'd refer you to about a dozen interviews I've given today, and if you'd like to arrange a conversation, be sure to reach out to our press office. Well, I can have that conversation with you. Just walk
You
down
don't
the
have a
street
message
here.
for them?
I do, and I shared it with the press many times today. I'd refer you to those comments.
Would you mind sharing it with us?
No, I'm going to refer you to the comments that I made to the press because right now I'm taking some personal time and I'm walking down the street.
Are you going down there?
What's that?
Are you going down there at all?
Yeah, I am.
When are you going?
I'll share that when I'm ready.
Okay,
Not talking on the
thank
street. Can I get a photo?
He, right at the end there, it was hard to hear because there was some wind going on. I don't know where this was, but this was a Daily Caller reporter. And Pete's walking down the street with his husband. I assume. There's a guy walking next to him. Going to dinner. Right now I'm taking some personal time. And he says, I'll go down there when I say I'm going to go down there. I'll go down there when I want to go down there. And then the day after, he goes down in East Palestine. The thing that he does at the end is the creepiest. He said right at the end there, he takes a photo of the reporter. Why do you think he would do that? He either believes that the reporter isn't who the reporter says they are. She identified herself right at the beginning of the comment. Or right at the beginning of the conversation,
Secretary, what do you have to say? Hi, how are you?
Good.
Jenny Terra with the Daily Caller News Foundation.
Daily Caller News Foundation. She identifies herself right at the beginning of the commentary. And then right at the end of it, Pete Buttigieg says, you mind if I get a photo of you? He takes a photo of her. I wonder why. Any thoughts as to why he would do that? Seems odd. Unless that's a government official deciding that they don't like the way they're being treated as they walk down the street, as any fellow citizen would, but they're to be treated differently than other citizens. They're not to be talked to in that way. It almost smacks of a decision that there might be some retaliation coming. I don't know. Just a thought. Oh, yeah, just refused to allow her to ever again get access to the Secretary of Transportation. Hey, this photo of this person, is this reporter who they say they are? Oh, they are. Well, then we're never talking to that person again. We're never having a conversation with that person again. That kind of thing. Because I don't like the way that she's actually asking me questions about East Palestine when I'm trying to walk to dinner. How dare you? Sadly, Pete Buttigieg was a selection based on identity and not on ability.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
And that's what you get, Mr. President. It's 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11 or jumping into energy stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Well, hello there, 135. My name is Matt Murphy. We host a gathering between noon and 3. We call it the Matt Murphy Show on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You can also check us out on Supertalk TV. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Please be a part of that if you so desire. You can see my ugly mug on a daily basis for 3 hours. Mac Morey will be back and present in the newsroom coming up in just a couple of minutes. Bell K's behind the glass, screening your telephone calls, and generally speaking, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. I spent almost the entirety of that break arguing. I can't admit this. This is hard. Arguing with someone about pickles because I'm a big fan of pickles. I like a pickle. I like them sweet. I like them spicy. I like them just regular vinegary, just your regular dill. I prefer the genuine dill that you can still get in the supermarkets as opposed to the, whatever, the kosher dills that they sell. Mm-hmm. But I'm arguing with somebody over it started with a conversation about whether or not you should have pickles on sandwiches or hamburgers or chicken sandwiches particularly. And that kind of devolved into a general conversation about pickles. And, so that's what I was doing during the break. What were you doing, Mac?
I was working on the news. Doing that.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody is because I'm not.
Yeah, no, you're doing the more important things though. Pickles need to be discussed. That's
Where
fair.
are you on the big pickle debate?
I'm a
you
pickle guy.
Man?
Yes,
pickle guy?
Not on my burgers or my sandwiches, but just eating pickles in general. Yes, which I know is weird, but that's where I'm at.
No, I love pickles are free. By the way, Belle, I know you're losing some weight there. Pickles are free, meaning that I always said that when I was really immersed in a different pickles. You can have pickles as long as you're drinking enough water to flush the sodium out of your system. Pickles really don't have any measurable calories. So yeah, I mean it's a good snack to go to because I've long said pickles are free, meaning free in terms of there's no accounting for them with regard to your intake. So yeah, I've got probably 4 different brands of pickles in the house fridge. I've got the genuine dills. I've got the Clausens. Oh, the Clausens.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? They're a little expensive, but they're worth it.
They're pricey.
They're pricey, but they're worth it.
They're not free in that way.
No. Yeah. You'll pay for them, but so that's what I'm doing during the break. I hope that you are doing something as productive as I was as we break. All right, coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll talk with Cameron Smith. He's just popping in. He of the Tennessean.com, AL.com, and oftentimes on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. I understand that we all live in our little cocoons. As broad as the world is, as big as the world is with regard to social media and the internet and how it's brought us closer together in a lot of ways, it's separated us in more. And so I get that we live in our own cocoons and we pick and choose the news that we consume, the websites that we consume, the information. And so I would understand that I'm not predisposed to talk to a lot of these folks who have answered a recent poll regarding President Joe Biden. I will quote NPR. NPR. I know. You don't have to tell me. I get it. President Joe Biden is seeing his highest approval ratings in almost a year, while former President Donald Trump, who's hoping to take his job back, is getting his worst scores amongst political or potential Republican voters in years. But let's focus on Biden for a moment. So the Democrats in this poll, conducted by National Public Radio, approved of Joe Biden, let's say March 21st of 2022. Almost a year ago, he was at 74% amongst the Democrats. The claim is today, February 23rd, 2023, he's at 86% approval. Although I don't get that, I get that, right? I don't understand it, but if you're on Team Democrat, then what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It doesn't mean you're going to support him in 2024, but what are you going to do? Here's what I don't understand, and I don't believe. In August of 2022, NPR claimed that the Republicans supporting Joe Biden, Republicans, self-described, believing that Joe Biden was doing an A-OK job, was 3%. 3%. In this recent poll, the claim by National Public Radio is that Joe Biden's approval rating amongst Republicans is at 15%. I want to talk to you people. Cameron Smith joins us, and let's get, Hey, Cameron.
Am I live now?
I don't think you are. I can't hear you at all. I don't know what's going on. Hey, Bell, we got Cameron on? Yeah? Well, I don't hear him. Oh, there. Now I do.
I am alive.
Oh, well,
But have you seen Joe Biden in those bomber shades, right? The aviators.
He's looking.
That's got to be worth at least a tenth of 1 point, maybe.
You see, he bumble stepped up to the stairs at going to Air Force One today, too.
Yeah.
Those stairs are tricky. It's tough.
Leader of the free world, and it's tough, man. You got a lot on his mind, not focused on the steps.
Do you believe that 15% of Republicans think Joe Biden's doing a good job? I mean, I don't understand how you...
No.
Of course not.
I mean, no. Because, I don't believe the Democratic numbers. The only reason that I could see the Democratic numbers is because of, what are your other options?
Right. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
He's the president.
Harris. The vice president. That's your... Nope.
No, that's not happening. And that in no way means that they will support him for re-election. The question is, do you approve of the performance of the president of the United States? And it's all in how they couch these questions. But I don't see a way that you could ask the question where you get 15 out of 100 Republicans going, yeah, he's doing a great job.
No.
I love it.
No. I mean, come on. Other options. Pete, the derailments happen all the time. Buttigieg. Of course. That guy. He's probably better than Biden, right?
He's not factually incorrect, but I don't think that's your go-to answer, Pete.
You know what your job is, right?
Right.
To not that.
Hey, guys, I'm always bad at my job, not just in East Palestine, all over.
Imagine a police officer who's people get murdered all the time.
I mean, yeah, what are you going to do?
Right.
Ma'am, you need to calm. I know your husband got stabbed. You need to calm down.
This happens all the time.
I've seen more dead bodies than you can shake a stick at, and we've caught nobody. Just calm down. I mean, yeah, come on, man.
Hey, I don't know, and I've got a column coming out on this. Get excited. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene did the great divorce thing. I'm sure you talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
no, I actually avoided it.
Oh,
I avoided it.
I'm going to drag you in, kicking and screaming.
I don't want it.
But then she bothered in the longest Twitter thread ever to clarify her perspectives, and instead of just dismissing it like I probably should have, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the whole thing. I want to understand what she means. What she really meant was federalism. Apparently, she's never heard of it. But it was so we'll have these red states and blue states under a not particularly powerful federal government where they do things differently. And I'm like, yes, yep, I agree. Anyway, you'll get to read the column. That's exciting. But there's a section in her tweet where she says red states will probably ban selling sex toys next to children's toothbrushes at Walmart. And so I, being the intrepid media personality I am, ventured to Walmart, and she's not wrong. I did not realize this, but there are literally like adult toys in the same area as like toothbrushes in Walmart. And she's like, well, in red states, we would not allow this. I'm like, well, they do in Tennessee and Cool Springs. So it was one of those minutes where I was like,
that's where I veer off the reservation. I don't want federal agents patrolling the produce sections of our grocery stores, making sure that we're not misusing.
Matt,
whatever.
we should have a radius of adult toys where children's toothbrushes may not be in the radius. So if it's adult toothbrushes, is fine because you can do all kinds of stuff. You know what
we should do? We should put a big neon sign that says "Adult Toy Section, No Kids Allowed," because that'd help.
Yeah, and certainly no kids will be then attracted to it.
Right, it's always worked that way.
And I didn't believe it, so I was like, oh, I'm near Walmart. Let me go check it out. Yep. I'm like,
when did Walmart start carrying adult toys?
It's right.
I mean, literally. We're talking about.
Yeah, it's like vibrators next to the condoms over by the pharmacy, and I'm like, what? She's telling the truth. This is and it's not obscene, and it's not marketed in any like nefarious way. It's just there, like, hey, while you're here getting some groceries, why don't you get a whatever thing?
Okay.
It's a thing. Seriously,
this is your fault. The story I'm about to tell, I completely blame you.
Okay.
I completely blame you.
I'm excited.
So, speaking of marketing of sexual aids,
yeah.
In college, many of you know that I studied theater in my college life, and there was a show that we were doing that involved a scene in which an actor on stage threw a vibrator at another actor.
As you do.
It was a prop.
Yeah.
Right. In the show. And so I was directing the show, and so I had to go find one. And so I went and I bought one, which was, I'm 20 years old. It was kind of embarrassing, but whatever. Drove to Atlanta because, of course, in Carrollton, Georgia, in conservative Carrollton, in Carroll County, we didn't have any of that. So I bought the one because it amused me so much that had the photographs on the box of all of the myriad of uses for this particular device, having nothing to do with what everybody uses it for. So there was a guy, there was one shot of like an old lady, like a grandma, and she was rubbing the side of her leg with it.
Working out
just
working
out the muscles. And there was a shot of a golf cart. And the guy's got, he's got his golf buddies are getting ready to tee off. And I'm not making this up. He's got it out of his golf bag and he's rubbing his back. Oh, boy. Hey, Jim, you got that back massager? I really need to rub out this kink.
Can you imagine you're playing golf and some dude pulls, hey, man.
You can go ahead and play through, sir. Go ahead, just right on through. We've known each other for 10 years. Yes, I know.
But no joke, this is the level to which our political discourse has devolved to be like, well, I know that one thing's for sure, red states wouldn't allow, the sex toys and the toothbrushes. Like, that really happened from a U.S. Congresswoman. Like, and I understand, like, we dismiss a lot of it. She's not wrong about people being upset, but, like, what I see is people get upset about things that aren't happening near them. Like, she's upset about things that are happening in California, which seems kind of weird. Like, just don't live in California. Like, welcome to Tennessee, all you people from California. I'm glad you've come.
But socialist liberals, it is not good enough for them.
Correct.
And they've demonstrated over and over and over again, it's not enough that they have California. They want to California, Tennessee.
Right.
They've made that clear.
So, great. Well, then you got to get majorities to do that, right? And so what I've said is focus, and I say this all the time, focus on winning where it matters. For Marjorie Taylor Greene, shoot down everything you can in terms of junk out of Washington that's one size fits all. Like, that's the right thing to do, not be like, I'm very upset at the things Democrats being liberal.
But the way that the way that conservatives, and I'm just observing, Cameron, I'm not trying to argue with you, although I think we're going to disagree on this because I'm going to shock you in a second. So the way that conservatives have traditionally won over people to their side is to acquiesce, is to give up ground. They've been doing it for 30 years.
That's not winning anybody over. That's just surrendering.
They've been doing it for 30 years, though, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been really bad at it. I'm not saying the idea of...
I mean, the idea of conservative government in Washington, D.C., from a physical standpoint, is kind of... It's antiquated. It's a fantasy.
It's also a fiction, yeah. I mean, It's a fantasy. But my take on it is it's either Mitt Romney or Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm like, whoa, partner.
I'm picking. I'm jumping into the volcano.
Right.
I'm not picking either of those.
Right. And that's where I am, right? Is like, hey, we don't have to be like a speed bump or insane, right? And that's where folks, I think, have this feeling that tough talk is the same as tough governance, is the same as winning. And it's not. And we need to get over that.
Where do you think this is going?
The stuff at Walmart, or
no, the divide in thought about the role of the federal government, the role of government generally, and where we're going as a nation.
I think the answer is you've got to say, you know what would be cool? You folks who love diversity, I love diversity too. I like different people operating. We'll call them states. These are the laboratories of democracy. I think people are moving there, but for two reasons. One, you see a logjam in D.C., right? The country is very narrowly split, so it's hard to do things in Washington. It just is, right? It's very narrow majorities, but in like a California or a Tennessee, the majorities aren't narrow, so they can do things and try things. And so I think there's a natural move to the states in their proper role because of the dysfunctionality in Washington. The reason that Washington still drives is because they can deficit spend to the tune of trillions of dollars. So,
which is why it freaks Washington, D.C. out so much when a state like Tennessee says, you know what, I don't think we need your education dollars anymore.
Bingo. I agree. I actually...
And that's what it's going to take.
I think that's smart.
You have to stop taking the fake money.
Yep.
Because people say, well, if we don't take it, someone else is. No, they just don't make up the money, right? They're making up money by borrowing it against the good faith and credit of the United States. So if we don't take it, it's not like there's money sitting in Washington, D.C. That money doesn't exist until we take it.
And this is where Cameron Sexton is getting my attention, is like saying, hey, there's a play here. And I'm like, that guy, like that takes some guts, right? Because people are like, you hate education.
Because it's easily demonized.
So that shows me you got some political chops, and you're saying, I'm willing to kind of lay some capital on the line. And oh, by the way, the federal government has turned every state in the country into junkies. And that's what we got to get away from.
But I don't know where it's hard to predict the future.
Right.
But in 20 years from now, I don't know where true conservatism is in America anymore.
So I think we need to get over the true conservatism thing, right? And what I mean by that is
small government conservatism. I mean, what words do you want me to use?
Great policy.
I mean, like constitutional conservatism.
And I get it. We need a shorthand label, but like conservatism has evolved and changed as it can and should. The basic principles.
Conservatives don't mind vibrators anymore.
Right. And that's a great, like, when you think Walmart and you're like, hey, woohoo, let's go. Roll Tide. But like my point is,
oh man, you'd make a mint in Bama.
Oh, yeah.
You make a mint. Just put an elephant on one of those things. You sell them out. Sell them out.
Just call it the elephant.
In the room. Back in a moment. All right, friends, it is as simple as this. If you are feeling sluggish, I'm talking to you guys out there in the audience right now. If you're feeling sluggish, run down, if you don't have the energy that you did, and you just ascribe it to being middle-aged. I'm 49 years old, and I'm feeling pretty good. But if you feel sluggish or low down, it's time to get checked because we need to check a few of these boxes off. Just like you want to make sure your blood pressure is right, just like you want to make sure your cholesterol is where it should be, you also want to make sure your testosterone is where it should be. And I understand a lot of the attention gravitates toward bedroom activities or certain dysfunctions. I get that. And by the way, Tennessee Men's Clinic gets that as well. And they can help you out if you're experiencing that. No shame in that game. But it's more than just that. It's getting to the gym. It's getting to the yard and doing some yard work. It's not feeling energetic like you should. You do not have to lose that energy in middle age. Go to Tennessee Men's Clinic for more information at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or 208-9090. 208-9090. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Tennessee Men's Clinic.
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 77 degrees right now in Nashville. Little sunny, little cloudy, a lot windy. Wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. China's top foreign policy official has been meeting with Russian leader Vladimir Putin and Kremlin officials in Moscow. The meetings come amid warnings that Beijing is considering sending lethal support to Russia for the war in Ukraine. Patrick Reevell is in Kyiv with more on a war rally that was held.
Vladimir Putin appeared at this concert rally, really, that's been held in Moscow's main stadium, which is called Luzhniki. It has around a capacity of 80,000, so already I think the question of whether there are 200,000 people there or not, I mean, it's pretty unlikely. It's probably an exaggeration, but certainly there were tens of thousands of people there. I mean, Vladimir Putin appeared after a lot of patriotic acts that were playing pro-war songs. And he basically said what he's been saying many times before, which is that he said that Russia is basically defending itself.
Over to a crime story here in Tennessee. Channel 4 says that a vehicle pursuit started in Stewart County. It ended in Montgomery County this morning. The male driver ended the chase on South Liberty Church Road, then fled on foot. A woman remained in the car, and she was detained. Officials are still looking for the male suspect. He's described as a black man with shoulder-length dreadlocks and was last seen wearing a black hoodie. Police found methamphetamines and marijuana inside of the car, and law enforcement is going to be monitoring and searching that area for the rest of today. And weather around the nation, lots of winter storms, some impacting flights. Minneapolis and Denver are feeling it, and the threat is there for other places too. Alex Stone reports from L.A. where it could snow later on this week.
From California to Connecticut, 43 states are under weather warnings today. In South Dakota, state offices are closed and employees working remotely. Lieutenant Andrew Siebenborn with Sioux Falls Police says more than a foot of snow is expected.
We really aren't even into the bad part of the storm that's coming up, and we expect it to get a lot worse.
And then here in Los Angeles County, blizzard warnings are up for expected rare snow on Thursday night. There hasn't been a blizzard warning in Southern California in over 20 years.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Yes, you heard the man. Temperatures in the 80s. That's right. And so you're probably running over to the heating and air AC unit and kind of moving it from heat to AC. That would make a lot of sense. And if you're doing that, and we do that often this time of year, you're putting strain on the unit, and maybe it's not operating like it should, or you're smelling that smell. Whatever the reason, you need to call Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling and get him out to check that thing out. If it's not running as it should, Jeff will make it run as it should with Efficient Heating and Cooling. And, oh, by the way, I understand it's February. I understand you're looking at me going, are you nuts, Murphy? But before you know it, you'll be running that AC with a fair amount of regularity in Nashville, Tennessee, and beyond. And you need to get it maintenance. You maintenance your teeth. You maintenance your car. You maintenance other aspects of your home. You need to maintenance that AC unit as well. Once a year, get Jeff Eddy out and let him check it out, and it's going to extend the life of that AC unit. Jeff Eddy does not want to replace your AC unit until it's time to replace your AC unit, and he can extend that time with a maintenance call. Call 615-784-4424. They are a Mitsubishi Electric Diamond contractor, an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. It's Efficient Heating and Cooling. Go to efficienthvac.net, efficienthvac.net. Welcome back. It's hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. Thank you for being around. Whether you're listening on the radio on 99.7 FM throughout the great state of Tennessee and beyond, perhaps you're listening on the app or iHeartRadio or some other platform that way, thank you for that. Or you're watching on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. We appreciate all of you. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number and the super text number if you want to get involved in the show. Cameron Smith is involved. He's all in. Cameron, thank you.
I am all in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for you.
We're talking Don Lemon this hour. I'm telling you. I'm not going to let this go away. Although I do want to reflect on a conversation that we had last hour, and without offering any context clues as to what some of these super texts are saying. Let's say 9061 says, just make sure you get the lube that has fluoride in it.
What?
You brought it up. I didn't bring it up.
I want to have words, but man, they escape me at the moment.
And then this 8359 says, you need to describe this toy. By definition, it's not considered an adult toy if it's not in the shape of a body part.
No.
Did you look?
Yes. No, I'm not going to. No. I mean, I can bring myself so far, but I am a conservative Southern gentleman who struggles and giggles a lot whenever I say words like vibrators. So, no, I will not describe it in vivid detail.
You went there first, too, by the way.
I did, but she went there first. Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was the one. She did it.
Corey, the yard boy, says, wait a minute, can't a toothbrush identify as an adult toy? That's true. I think it brings up a good point.
You're going to need to tell Corey. I don't know what he's into, but that sounds kind of rough.
Keith says, what exactly are these adult toys beside the toothbrushes? I've never seen any. I haven't either, but...
You know what we've just done is we've created a run on the Walmart adult toys section, if nothing else, just to verify
Which is apparently the same thing as the toothbrush section.
It's sort of diagonally across, like near the cold medicine.
Okay, so this is the conversation that I envision. And by the way, this all is... it was started based on a comment made by Marjorie Taylor Greene that we're having a national divorce before our very eyes in the red states and the blue states. And she made the comment about...
She said red states, would probably... I don't think... She said, and I don't think in a red state they'd allow the sex toys to be near the children's toothbrushes. And I was like, what are you... At Walmart. And that was very specific. And so I went and checked it out in Cool Springs.
Uh-huh.
It's true.
So I'm imagining that conversation. So Matt Murphy plays the general manager of the Walmart. Cameron Smith plays the role of the stock boy.
Right.
Like, hey, Cameron, we got this new shipment of stuff in, and we've got some new items we've got to get on the shelves. All right, let's open these up here. And
right.
Okay, what do you want to do with these? Where are we supposed to put these?
Over near the kids' toothbrushes, because it's not against the law. No, we don't need a law for that.
Well, no. It makes sense to me that we would put these beside the children's toys. Children's toys, adult toys.
Same, but
it's
different.
Still toys.
Yeah.
Just for adults. I think we should put them in the toy department.
I now know there's at least one person hearing this that's like, I'm going to go to Walmart and I'm going to ask questions. And I'm going to say, hey, could you help me out here? What would you recommend in this section?
No, see, I think a lot of the Walmart employees we could put them next to the adult toys. I mean, the adult toys next to the children toys. We could put them in, I don't know, sporting goods.
Sporting goods.
And then finally, just find out where the lube is and put it next to the lube. Would you put it next to the lube? And that just happened to be right beside the children's toothbrushes.
So it's over with the tents and bicycles. Okay.
Family planning. There you go.
Well, and that's where it really is. I mean, but it's like going on a camping trip. Well,
I mean,
I want to be fully equipped, you know?
If you can set up a tent, why do you need the
just saying.
Sorry. I turned 14.
Yeah, me too. When I verified this, because again, intrepid journalist, it's what I'm doing. I was like, wow, nobody. Who's the person that thinks, I'm here at Walmart, and that's the thing? They're like, I'm here for that. Or is it like you stumble upon adult toys at Walmart, and then you're like, yep, I think it's time. I got my Ensure and my cold medicine, and here's a ringy for my dinghy.
What? No, I don't, and I don't want to know. You keep that trash on.
I'm trying to use appropriate radio phrases for this stuff.
They had that too.
There's options, man.
I mean, when did Walmart become Spencer's Gifts?
Low prices always on everything, Matt. Everything.
Low standards too, apparently.
Well, it wasn't creep. I mean, it's creep because it's at Walmart.
But here's the deal. I'm going to try to treat this subject seriously.
Do your best. You can do it.
When's the last time you saw a kid picking out their own toothbrush?
Mine don't. We're like, here's your toothbrush.
Yeah, it's the adults over there. And so, maybe, hey, we need to get the kids toothbrushes. And
I'm looking for a good toothbrush right now because I was literally brushing my teeth and it just broke in half. Just
the handle.
Yep. I'm like, maybe I'm brushing too hard.
My wife does the electric. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't like anything mechanical like that in my mouth.
We're on live radio, Matt, and there's just so many. I have a lot of things to say, and I'm not going to say them because it's radio. And
you know what? That's another reason to put that item beside the toothbrush.
This is a classy, family-friendly radio show.
This is the aisle of things that we put.
And this is more entertaining than the current state of affairs in our politics. I am finding this wildly humorous.
I'm beginning to understand why the product was placed where it was.
I just want
It makes sense.
Somewhere, some Tennessee legislator is like, she might be onto something. We may need to ban this.
Toothbrushes, oral thermometer, rectal thermometer.
Yeah.
Adult.
Yeah. Well,
that really got out of hand fast.
It did.
Okay, where were we?
Just have fewer laws, people. Be a conservative.
Oh.
Don't no more laws to do random things because you're don't like product placement at Walmart.
Are you getting us? Is this you getting us back on track?
I'm trying.
Okay, dokie. Okay. Saying the words rectal thermometer reminded me of Don Lemon. So Don Lemon is in a spot of bother, although he's a liberal, so he gets forgiven. If Don Lemon, I'm not in favor of canceling people because they offer positions inartfully or they say stupid things on TV or radio.
Right.
If I was of the position that if you say stupid things on TV or radio, you get fired, I would have been in a different line of work a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, but also, I'm not the guy that created this playing field. And Don Lemon was a leader of the team that created this woke playing field by which you could castigate and potentially cancel individuals based on saying things inartfully or taking positions that were contrary to the prevailing mood of the country.
Did you see my headline?
Give us your headline.
The crucifixion of Don Lemon will not be televised because this is the problem. And it's a riff on the song, The Revolution will not be televised, which the idea is like, if you want to have something change, you've got to be active about it, right? And in this situation, you have two realities. One, you espouse the cultural narrative or you get fired. Strict liability. You screw up, you're gone, right? That's what Don Lemon espouses. That's what CNN espouses, is very much, this is gospel. You screw up, we call for your head, right? That's
right.
what they do.
That's what they do.
That's stupid, but it's what they do. And then Don Lemon does this. And again, we're playing demographic realities here. There are not very many gay, black television network hosts that are in that role. And so for diversity purposes, it matters, right? And I'm saying, okay, that's great to have that viewpoint and that diverse background present on the air. He said something sexist. He just did. And so you got two choices here. You can either crucify him and say, you're gone, sorry, Don, or say, you're a human. You stuck your foot in your mouth. It was sexist. Don't be like that. Prove that this is not your character. Prove that this was a foot and mouth. But then he's got to extend that same grace to the people he skewers.
He doesn't have the ability to do it.
Right. And so that's the inconsistency.
Because and the reason that these individuals can be as hypocritical as they are, they don't consider it hypocrisy, but because Don Lemon does not consider conservative thinkers to be his peers.
Right.
He considers himself to be a better.
Right, but this is
so the rules are different for him.
But this is the problem when you boil down people to their characteristics. It's morally wrong to do that, right? And so if I'm looking at Don Lemon as he checks this box and he checks this box, but he said a sexist thing, so that's like bad. So how do we weight these different? No, it's Don Lemon's a human. He made a mistake. Now the question is he actually sorry for his actions?
No.
Is it part of his character? And I think this issue is, I don't think he really feels bad. He said it was inartful.
Here's the thing. The problem with having the discussion along the level that you're having it, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with it, is that we're talking about Don Lemon.
Right.
And I don't think Don Lemon is a good human being. I just don't. I don't think his coworkers think he's a good human being. And I think it's evidenced in the manner in which he responded to the mildest level of pushback. Poppy Harlow wanted to have a little fun with it. If you watch this clip, he's like, I'm sorry. And he puts his hands on his hips. I'm sorry. It's true. You can Google it. And she's like, what? What? Like, really? What are we even? I mean, she was kind of like, what are we even talking about right now? And he wanted to shut her down.
Well, then he went with his apology was inartful. You remember Mitt Romney and the Notebooks of Women thing when he debated Barack Obama, and it was a fumble, right? He was trying to say
binders full of women.
Yes, we got binders full of women, and that was at the time the height of controversy. Like, is he? And the whole point was Mitt Romney was trying to say, I want to be proactive about gender diversity and who's in my cabinet.
And I think he was actually talking about job performance in Massachusetts or
he
was talking about past performance.
It was the media grabbed one phrase and said that thing. Don Lemon was not inartful. He clearly was referencing women's sexual prime, and as if that was a criteria to be president, because he was trying to say Nikki Haley is ageist.
Just Google it. Google it.
He just failed miserably, and he should have said, I was an idiot. I made a mistake, and I'm sorry, and I'll do better.
Well, but Don Lemon, and this is the trouble that he particularly runs into. I don't think Don Lemon's a very smart person. And so his take was so bad, even if he was aware at the moment. I get this. And by the way, I've been here in 22 years where
it happens.
You throw a take down and you realize somewhere in the midst of it that your take is so bad.
I fumbled.
And you're like, the only thing I can do is double down on this at this point and then pretend it never happened next segment because my take is bad.
Right. You mess up.
Lemon, his ego will not allow him to back up.
So I disagree with you in that it's not that I don't think he's smart. I do think he's arrogant. I think this to him is, I don't get it why you think this is such a big deal. Well, we think it's kind of a big deal because every time anyone makes a mistake, your network and you have the perspective of, I'm coming for your head.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy that proudly called Trump a racist. He came out in 2018 and he just said, the president of the United States is a racist.
Well, not only that, Cameron, he called anyone supporting him a racist.
Like, and when that's
Don Lemon has made blanket statements on his evening show, which nobody watched, and I understand if everyone missed this, he would make these blanket type statements that if you support Donald Trump, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, you're a racist.
Right.
And now he wants grace from a group of people that he's called racist? I mean,
because he has female colleagues that have been successful. And I'm like, whoa. Just imagine if Tucker Carlson said the exact same thing and issued the same apology, Don Lemon and CNN would be like, Fox News must fire him immediately.
Right.
Like, he has to be terminated.
Right.
He does not. He is a sexist. And
no amount of training is going to change his mindset.
And I think that's wrong, right?
I do too.
That is wrong
That's
to
called
behave that
cancel
way.
culture.
But cancel culture is a huge cancer to our country. And this is where CNN has a choice here. You can cancel Don Lemon and be consistent with Don Lemon, right? Or you can say, okay, which is what they're doing. They're saying he's got formal training. Okay.
Whatever.
Right. We're giving you another chance is what they're saying.
Right.
And now when Don Lemon's like, hey, this person said this thing, they are whatever-ist that is bad. No, he's got to now take a step back on his own mistakes and say, hey, maybe they messed up. And that's the right answer. I don't see it.
Do you think he has the personal awareness to be able to do that?
Awareness, yes, but I think he has no intention of doing it because of the arrogance, right? It's, I am righteous, and so I made a little mistake. Your mistake is super serious.
I think he would talk his way out of it. He would present it in a way where this is completely different than what my thing was because of this, that, and the other thing. That's what they do, right? That you find the exact, you create these analogies between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. And when Trump did A, you did B, but now Biden's doing something very similar to A, and you're not doing B at all. Oh, no, these things are completely different, and here's the laundry list of reasons why.
Yeah, and I mean, this goes another point with Biden just changed asylum policy. Like, just did it the right way, right? And I'm like,
He's doing the right thing because this has become such a problem at the southern border.
Yes, and so he's changing the policies. Let's talk about it.
222 Super Talk 99.7 WT, and get in on the conversation primarily on the Super Text line. You're invited, 615-737-9986. No more sex toys jokes. I've got them. I actually have them all. I've gotten them all now, so we don't need any more. It's Super Talk 99.7 WT. I will see Brink Fiddler Friday. I'm off Friday for the TECC course. That's the Tactical Emergency Casualty Care training seminar that is going on at Glock Store Nashville. Now, I don't know if there's a seat available for you. You can find out at don'tbleedout.com. But more importantly, if you're a business owner, if you're a decision maker in your school or your church, go to defensesystems.com and find out what Brink does for his community on a regular basis. He has 18-plus years in the Metro Nashville Police Department. He has employed police officers from the police department, brought them over to Defense Systems so that they can help you and your business train for the unlikely scenario that you find yourself in the midst of workplace violence, or you find yourself in the midst of even an active shooter situation. Just about every person that has been a part of an active shooter situation says the same thing. If they come out unscathed, they say, I never thought that it would happen to me. God forbid it happens to you. But if it does, are you properly trained? Hope is not an answer. It is time to get trained with Defend Systems. Go to defendsystems.com, defendsystems.com, and for TECC training this weekend, don'tbleedout.com.
wind advisory in effect today. Former President Trump in East Palestine, Ohio, and the Titans making some big roster moves. That and more 30 minutes after the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Mac Morey, back in the news area. We appreciate you for being the grown-up on the show today.
Well, I was very tempted to come in, but I just stayed out.
What is your what are the last 4 digits of your social? I mean, not your social, your phone
I was
number.
like, what's going on?
Not your social. I don't know what I was saying there. Because it's not 2936, is it?
It's not. It's not.
It sounds like you. Somebody suggested on the super text line, well, guys, it's obvious they should be put with the power tools.
Obviously. Hey,
you need to be quiet, mister.
Yeah, my wife texted me just now and said, your son is listening. First of all, I want to thank my son for being part of the 13-year-old 99.7 demographic. It's a very small cohort, but an important one. And
hello, little beast.
Yeah, he's the beast. He was the original. That's the one that's listening. And he broke his finger. He's at the doctor's office getting it checked out in flag football. 6 years of tackle football, no injuries.
Wow.
2 flag football practices.
Broken finger.
The football hit the tip of his pinky and smashed it. And so it's like,
yikes.
Okay.
Yikes.
And he kept practicing because he's tough as nails.
Heck yeah.
Okay, so let's just real quick get done with this before we say hello to Jody Barrett. Right after the news. So, as many departments in Walmart that we could think would be appropriate for these items to be in. Okay, power tools, produce.
Yep.
We've already established what? Just because. Never mind.
I have questions.
No,
I'm sure you do. I actually in Alabama, right as I got into Alabama, and actually the year before I got into Alabama, 1998, a law was passed to prevent the sale of items that were non-designated, prevent the sale of sexual aids in the state of Alabama. Like it was a blanket. We're not allowed to sell those types of things in Alabama.
Sure.
And I made a suggestion. I think John Rogers brought it up on the floor of the Alabama legislature. Representative John Rogers, an old friend. I made the suggestion that we post troopers in the produce sections of every grocery store in Alabama. I mean, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what are you making with that tonight? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
I just don't think that's the government's job.
No. And
I'm probably not making your life any easier when you get home right now.
But this is the problem is so many people just say, you know what? Here's the thing I like or don't like, and I need government to go fix it. You're not a conservative if you do that. Just stop. Don't do that.
Dave says we should put them in lawn and garden right next to the fertilizer. Hey!
Well, just the industrial strength ones.
That's pretty good. I could go on. Wonder how Don Lemon feels about Hillary. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, but once again, Don Lemon was reaching for criticism. Just to wrap this subject up. Don Lemon wanted to criticize Nikki Haley.
Yes.
And he didn't like that Nikki Haley had this idea of, that was dinging on Joe Biden.
Competency test for old people.
And he was just reaching for some way to criticize Nikki Haley. And the first thing that popped into his noggin was, well, she's old. When, she's not really old. She's 51.
No, not from a political standpoint.
Not from a political perspective.
No,
now, from a child. And once again, Poppy Harlow tried to lighten it. Was like, what are you talking about? You talking about like childbearing years? And Don Lemon, had he any self-awareness or, like you said, less arrogance, you have the awareness to go, okay, this is my out. And you say, you know what? I was probably thinking more childbearing. And this is politics. That's a little different. You're right.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
He didn't do it. And now CNN's like, well, he's had formal training.
You know what he did do? Google it. Just Google it. And I'll give credit where due. Piers Morgan was on Gutfeld last night. And I happened to be watching. And I don't know about you, but post-CNN Piers Morgan, I like. Like, since he went back to Britain and didn't harp on the Second Amendment constantly, I kind of like the guy. He was like, my favorite part of this is he says Google it like everyone's going to be looking at each other like, what the hell is oh, wait. Oh, he said Google it. And they go, Oh, wait, look, Don's got a point. I Googled it. It's like nobody's doing that. Everybody knows what you said.
The irony and the beauty here is that literally now, if you Google women in their prime, you see content about Don Lemon.
Well, and here's the thing. The day that it broke, Bell can back me up. I Googled it, and it wasn't true then.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't even say that.
It didn't even say that. I mean, he was like, Google it. You Google it, you'll see it. I Googled it, and it was like, well, considering a woman in her prime, they said exactly what Poppy Harlow said, which was, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about childbearing? Are we talking about...
Now, if you Google
40s.
You see Don Lemon. Like, women in their prime, Don Lemon. Like,
Don Lemon looks like a woman beyond her prime.
Don Lemon he's got formal training. It's all better now, Matt.
Jody Barrett's coming up next. He's a representative of the General Assembly in the great state of Tennessee. He's going to talk about some legislation he's got on the docket, amongst other things. That's on the way next. It's 2:32 on Super Talk.
2:32, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 78 degrees, a little cloudy right now in Nashville. Very windy, though. Wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. Former President Trump in East Palestine, Ohio today telling residents there who've been affected by the toxic train wreck that they are not forgotten.
We have told you loud and clear, you are not forgotten. You are not forgotten. We stand with you, we pray for you, and we will stay with you in your fight to help answer and the accountability that you deserve. We'll have that accountability. It'll all be out there very clearly.
It's been about 3 weeks since the derailment spill. Some Tennessee Titans roster moves. The Titans were tight on cash. They freed up some money today by cutting 3 players, one of which being the longest tenured player for the team, left tackle and 3-time Pro Bowler Taylor Lewan. Lewan tweeted on the move saying, quote, "I hope I did enough to create something all the Titans fans can be proud of. I love you all," end quote. Lewan was due $14.8 million this year. The other 2 players released today were wide receiver Robert Woods and kicker Randy Bullock. Woods tweeted one short but very telling word after the news release that read, quote, "free," with an exclamation point. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy, and I get an opportunity to talk to you about a very, very important subject from time to time, and it's your hearing. Did you know, for example, that the average person waits at least 12 months before they do anything about significant hearing loss? And really, it's longer than that. When you notice hearing loss, oftentimes it is 2 to 3 years before the person contacts a professional like Ronnie at Brentwood Hearing Center to do something about that. Let's talk to our friends at Brentwood Hearing Center today. Let's not wait, because one, oftentimes absent some oddity with your hearing, it's not going to get better, right? It's going to continue to degrade over time, and Ronnie can blanch that with a hearing device that's going to help you hear better, that's going to help you enjoy life more. And so I encourage you, if someone in your life's turning the television up really, really loud, or someone in your life doesn't want to go out to parties because they can't hear the goings on, or if that person is you, contact Ronnie at Brentwood Hearing Center today. BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. That's BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. 615-377-0420. Again, 377-0420. Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing for a better life. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Cameron Smith hanging out with us, as he is wont to do on Wednesdays. If your name was something, if you had a W, we could do some alliteration on, but it doesn't work. Like Cameron Wednesdays, it doesn't work.
That sounds weird.
Can you change your name to like Wendell? That would be nice.
Yeah, I look like a Wendell. Thanks.
You do kind of look
Appreciate it.
You do kind of. You ever see Emmett? Oh, no, I think I finally found it after 10 years of friendship? Did I find the thing that really annoyed you? I told you you look like.
Hi,
no,
I'm Wendell.
No, watch Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what I'm talking about. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas? What? Get out. No, it's a great Christmas classic that shows up at the Murphy household every Christmas season. Jim Henson did it. It was on HBO originally. We have the DVD version now. I've got a couple of VHS copies floating around, and there's a character in there named Wendell. He's a porcupine.
You can do Wednesday. You can't even say anything. It's like just Cameron's here.
Cameron's here, and Jody Barrett's here as well. Jody, thank you for being on the show. But based on I hope you haven't been listening for the last 15 minutes because, I know you haven't because you would have hung up by now. How are you?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm just great. I'm glad you're on so we can get away from conversations about what's on the toothbrush aisle at Walmart. You have a proposal that I kind of dig, and it takes me back to my early days of talk radio. And I'll introduce the subject by telling you a story. I almost got into fisticuffs as a 27-year-old young, wet behind the ears talk radio host with a lovely elderly woman in Montgomery, Alabama, because she told me that she was a card-carrying, registered Republican, and she has been since the day she was able to vote. And I told her, Jody, no, you're not. And it blew her mind because Alabama is an open state with regard to primary voting and in the general election. And you want to change that with your Bill 405. Tell us about it. In Tennessee, that is.
Well, I've got to give credit first to Representative Brian Ritchie from Maryville, who is the actual bill sponsor on this House Bill 405. I'm a co-sponsor with him, and he was seeking to have the primaries in Tennessee closed so that each party would have only their members of their party or registrants of their parties to vote in their primaries.
Yeah, so the concept is this, and I use the story of my days back in Alabama to illustrate the point that some people might believe that we have actual, quote-unquote, party registration in the state of Tennessee, but we don't. Right, Jody?
That's correct. Primaries are open. Independents can choose to vote in whichever primary they choose or not. There is a law in Tennessee that kind of gets off in the weeds about intent, that you cannot intentionally go and vote in another primary for the purpose of doing something nefarious. But it's never, it'd be impossible to prove, and it's never enforced. So this bill would seek to make that a little more uniform.
What's the problem that you're trying to solve?
Well, the issue is, if you want to boil it down to layman's terms, the New York Yankees would not allow Boston Red Sox fans to vote to determine who the Yankees manager was going to be. And so the idea is that with open primaries, Democrats can come over and vote in Republican primaries and have an influence on that, and vice versa. And we've seen a outbreak of that in recent years, and most recently this fall with the teachers unions and some other folks trying to get involved in pushing mailers out into the districts to encourage their voters to vote in the Republican primary against people who supported school choice.
All right, so the idea, and I think I get it, is that as the Republican Party holds dominance over the Democrats in the General Assembly and in a lot of rural areas, maybe not in Nashville, but in a lot of rural areas, the Democrats recognize that they don't have a fair shot to win in the general, they're going to start doing an end around and butting into the primary of the Republicans to try to get the weaker of the Republican candidate elected.
That's correct. They have an interest in trying to see a more moderate Republican candidate be nominated in the Republican primary than a more conservative candidate.
How do I get to prove that I'm a Republican?
Well, under the bill, there would be a registration process online through your local election commission, and you would have up until 30 days before a primary election to go online and register as to which party that you wanted to participate in.
Why do you want to give the parties more power?
I don't know that this gives the parties more power. This gives the parties the ability to determine who their nominee is going to be. And so, for instance, if the DNC has their convention to determine who their presidential nominee is going to be, they're not going to open the doors to independents and Republicans to come in and influence who that nominee is going to be. They're going to do it in a closed election system. So that's all this bill would seek to do, would be to close it out so that Republicans vote for Republicans and Democrats vote for Democrats.
So, Jody, I know you, and I know your heart's in the right place on this bill, so I'm not coming after you when I say this, but what do you say to people like myself who would tell you I would never vote in a primary again? I'm never going to register as a Republican. So what would you say? And I always vote in the Republican primary. So you're excluding me from that part of the process. What would you say to me?
Well, at the end of the day, you still have a say-so in the process whenever the general election comes around. So the encouragement is that independents are not being excluded from the process. They're just simply not involving themselves in party politics, which if you choose to declare yourself an independent, then you are choosing to not be affiliated with either party. And if that's the case, then you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, and also be able to influence how the party runs itself.
So what is the current process for third parties to get involved in primary elections? I don't know the answer to that, Jody, but I would need to know the answer to that, whether it would – the answer to that would determine maybe whether or not I support 405. Because if you're going to do that, if you're going to intentionally – and I'm – you know, you can say I'm making it personal because it is. I'm being serious. Matt Murphy will never register as a Republican, but I have voted in every Republican primary in the last 25 years. So what you're telling me is that I don't need to involve myself in that part of the process because I'm not a quote-unquote bona fide Republican. Well, that's fine, but I would request that you make it easier for third parties to access the primary ballot in conjunction with this so that Matt Murphy has an option to vote for example, a libertarian as opposed to a Republican?
Well, I'm glad you asked because there is an actual section in state code that does provide for the establishment of statewide parties. So currently we do have two major parties, but any third party in the state that wants to form itself and become a statewide party has an avenue through state law in order to do that.
What other drawbacks are you hearing, or what other concerns are you hearing about the bill? Anything?
Well, I think most of the pushback has been concerned from the independents' point of view of being somehow pushed out of the process or not having as much of a say. And again, I go back to the original point that I made in that if you're an independent, then that means that you do not affiliate yourself as a member of either party. So you should, at that point, you should understand that you don't get to influence how those parties decide which direction they're going to go when it comes to a nomination of a candidate.
So I support people, not parties, because I think the parties, frankly, we saw this in the last congressional situation where there were ballot shenanigans at the party level. I don't like anything that strengthens the party brass, if you will, over the voices of the people. And this is a scenario where you can pretty clearly use other options. Like, why not do a jungle primary that says, hey, the top two vote getters in any primary, they're the ones that get to run in the general. And that way you probably in a lot of races have two Republicans. Why not do that?
Well, there's lots of different ways of doing it. I mean, you could even go all the way to having a convention and nominating your nominees for statewide office through a convention rather than through.
But that goes to party strength again. You're now taking the bureaucracy. The party is now stronger rather than saying The people decide.
But haven't we already decided in Tennessee that the party is stronger than the process because they decided to boot people off of the ballot last
Right, and I oppose
around.
that. I just oppose that.
Yeah.
So I don't want a stronger
I'm sorry,
party.
Jody. I was talking to Cameron there, not you. But, well, look, I think it's a great starting point for the discussion. Obviously, what type of reception is it getting? Do you think this is going to have legs this General Assembly?
Well, unfortunately, as this call has been set up a little bit late because the committee just met to review this in full committee, and unfortunately it failed in local government committee by a very, very close margin. But it's really this is something that's come before the House consecutive sessions repeatedly, and this has probably gotten as far as it's ever gotten before.
Well, I'll say this, Jody. I would, and I guess we'll have at least another year to discuss what we would want to do if that's the case. I would be fully supportive of the concept of closed primaries if the political parties themselves pay for the process altogether. If they take the state money out of it altogether and they close off the primary and they act independently of the general election, I'd be in full support of it.
Well, and again, as far as state money is concerned for running the elections themselves, the primaries are happening coinciding with local elections. So these elections are already being taken place anyway. So it's not costing the state any additional money to run an election for a primary for these two parties.
Yeah, but if you want to formally, but that also is considering that I have the ability to cross over. But if you want to formally close off the system, my suggestion is with that you lose the money.
Well, let me throw this out there to you just to throw a wrench in the way that you're going at it. I also have a bill that I personally have run and is going to calendar and rules. It's come out of committee and will be going to the House floor. And what it does is it allows any candidate that gets removed from a primary ballot by one of the parties being through their challenge process, it allows them 7 additional days to refile as an independent.
So I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm for ballot access.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're calling it, ballot access. The parties get to decide who it is that's going to be on their primary ballot. And when they say that you can't run in their primary, they're not saying that you can't run at all. You just can't run in their primary.
Jody, it's a great conversation. I got a lot to think about now. I appreciate you bringing some sanity to the show. It was a pretty insane hour before you got on. Come see us sometime, my friend.
I'll do it anytime.
There's Jody Barrett. He joins us from District 69. He's in the General Assembly representing that district out there in Dixon, and we appreciate him being on the show today. It is 2:52. We wrap things up in just a moment. Hand off to the drive after this. All right, let's talk about things that can put you in a foul mood. Waking up before the alarm clock. That's one. Getting stuck in traffic. That happens a lot in Nashville. That's two. Getting a gift or like for a concert, for example, for an artist you don't care for. That all puts you in a bad mood. But you know what can turn that mood around? Tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix August 4th through the 6th. They are on sale and they are ready to go. Nashville plays host to 3 full days of racing, music, and so much more. I was so bummed that I missed the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix last year that I marked the dates last year for this year's race, and I will not be missing it. It all starts, Saturday night. You've got racing Saturday night with the return of the high-flying stadium super trucks. Tons and tons of racing, capped off with Sunday's NTT IndyCar Series racing through the streets of Nashville. It is time to burn some rubber and burn some bridges in the process. You know what can change your mood really fast as well? Amazing music. Nashville, known as Music City, USA. The Grand Prix, well, you'll find plenty of it with the Wesley Mortgage Freedom Friday All-Star Concert honoring the military. Big Saturday night concert under the stars as well. It is the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Tickets on sale. Get them before they're gone. MusicCityGP.com. MusicCityGP.com.
3 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 77 degrees in Nashville. Going to be a little hotter for the next couple of days. This weekend, it'll cool back down to regular February temperatures. Right now, wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight, and a flood advisory in effect in Decatur and Hardin, Tennessee's at the Savannah River, in Savannah for the Tennessee River there. Weather and traffic coming up in just a few minutes. A visit to the area of the toxic train derailment in Ohio by former President Trump. Derek Dennis.
On the ground near the site of the toxic train derailment, former president and presidential candidate again, Donald Trump, with a familiar phrase.
We've been getting our news from the real news and from the fake news.
Critics say Trump is playing politics with the disaster, noting his administration made defunding transportation and rolling back environmental regulations a priority. Trump himself limiting his criticism of his successor, President Biden, and FEMA for their derailment response.
They could have been 2 weeks earlier, or at least a week earlier. I guess it came from the top.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is there today. An active investigation in Tennessee. There was a shooting on Demonbrook Street just before 1 this morning. It was caught on security cameras. The footage shows a Camaro leaving a parking lot, then passing by a group of men. They exchange some words with the driver, and the car pulls a U-turn and shoots while driving away headed east. A security guard witnessed the shooting. Police said the 25-year-old driver was dropped at a local hospital shortly after that shooting with a gunshot wound to his leg, and they're still searching for the other shooter, who they have now released a photo of. And tax breaks for mothers and families are in 2 bills filed in the legislature.
Gallatin Republican State Senator Pharrell Hale and Goodlettsville Republican State Rep Johnny Garrett are sponsors of legislation to forever make baby diapers, infant formula, and baby wipes tax-exempt in Tennessee. For now, the prospect of passing does not look good in the Senate. News 2 says the Senate version of the bill failed to receive a positive recommendation in the Finance, Ways, and Means Revenue Subcommittee. The price tag seems to be the issue. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
A bomb threat in the volunteer state. News 2 reports that a teenage boy allegedly called in a bomb threat against Park Avenue Church in Nashville. The 15-year-old is facing a felony charge after reportedly making the call near his house. Officials say he claims he was making prank calls. Metro Police take these matters seriously and say when it comes to these cases, quote, those responsible once identified will be prosecuted. And some news with Microsoft's new Bing is a search engine that you can have a conversation with thanks to artificial intelligence. Last week, Microsoft began limiting those conversations after the bot started giving strange responses. In one case, telling a New York Times journalist that it loved him. But now Microsoft is lifting some of those restrictions. Here's Mike Dabuski.
Conversations with the new Bing can now go on for longer, and you can access it more times over the course of a day. Microsoft saying it's looking to responsibly bring back longer conversations with the AI after a string of reports where it gave unusual or at times offensive responses. The new Bing is also now available on Android and iOS apps. It's being integrated into Skype, and it can talk. The company saying it's using text-to-speech technology where users can dictate a question to Bing and it will respond in its own voice.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.